Good day there. I am so glad to talk to you again. We just shot the video with CW, and I hope you like that. We're going to start putting more testimonials on. You're going to like this one on MS to show you the power that using healthy programs and changing the consciousness to health instead of treating these phantom diseases, the difference that makes in the regeneration of the human body. But I promised I would do a video on spirituality, and I do want to do that, so I want to go on down the line where I kind of left off. I've got a lot of questions that I want to get to, and I probably won't do that till Monday morning. Chris said he still has a question and answer video to get up yet. So please have patience with us, because trying to get all the work done around here and get those up, I wanted him to take you on a little journey around our office here so you could see how small we are, and you would realize that what we accomplish in such a small space. You know, in this video with CW, and we were talking, and she was talking about spirituality and setting back, and I know there's a lot of people, and a lot of Christians are afraid of the word spirituality. A lot of Christians sometimes are fearful of the unknown. And some words, like New Age, and words that are hyped up to mean something esoteric or something unknown or unseen. And the word cult has been assigned to a lot of teachings. And then in the dictionary, Christianity is considered a cult. So, you know, I think that the word spirituality really comes to play when an individual breaks the hold of conditioning from the mind and the emotions and starts to ask questions of the universe or of God or of themselves. Who am I? Where did I come from? What is reality really? Spirituality is the opening up and understanding that all of us are one. We're all connected. I don't care what color, what race, it doesn't matter. The beauty of creation is individuality. It's the essence of creation. In that individuality, the ego can get accentuated and create a greater separation than what really is. And so when we start becoming more isolated from the totality of things, then we start seeing things as separate. When you're taken out of your body, or you experience out-of-body journeys beyond just the tunnel, just the light, and you start traveling in worlds where there are cities and landscapes beyond description, you will also expand in your awareness of life, because the closer to God you get, the more aware you get of all life. I had mentioned in the first video on spirituality of the word cosmic consciousness. It's also referred to as the universal mind, and Holmes writes a lot about it. I think the book's The Universal Mind by, I think it was John Holmes, can't remember, it's been a lot of years. Talks about the universal mind, or the cosmic consciousness experience. And when I first experienced that, there is that union, the ecstasy and bliss that one has when he sees that all life really is one. And it's hard to see that without lifting yourself up into these higher realms. It's hard to see that down in these lower physical worlds, because we tend to see so much separation. And when we start quieting the mind from thought, then everything becomes one. And things become more in the now. And so now you see a lot more about the now. There's been a long journey to that. when I started studying or interested in out-of-body travels. I can't remember what turned me on to out-of-body travels. It's so many years ago. But I remember I was living in state parks in a camper van, a Volkswagen camper van, and I was sitting around a campfire with a police detective, and this police detective said, well, if you're interested in out-of-body travel, study the Rosicrucians. So I immediately looked up the Rosicrucians, signed up, and they're a great old group, been around for many centuries, I suppose, and they teach you out-of-body travel, but they also teach you to use your mind a little bit. And I did get into mind control for a while, and making others do what I wanted them to do. I only had a short stay in that because it did not fit with who I am and what I recognize in life, because I would never ever want to create karma or interfere in another soul's journey. And I felt it at that time too. But many paths teach you mind control and things like that. There's a lot of levels. It's like school. It's like colleges. Different colleges have different academics, and some are considered better than others, and blah, 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 blah. And there's different livelihoods that you can study here. And it's the same spiritually. You have your channelers, and you have all levels of that. And then one gets much into the mind at first, metaphysics. So I went through a journey where at one time I felt that there was no God. I felt that, it's really just chemistry and physics. It's all just life expanding. And I didn't understand intelligence and consciousness enough at that time. And then I became a Jesus freak. I loved Jesus. I think I saw Jesus Christ Superstar 32 times. But I didn't see Jesus as God. I saw everything as God then. But I loved the teachings of Jesus. And not just in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I think they picked those four Gospels because they were the most restrictive. I think if you look truly in the historic side of Christianity and Jesus, you'll find he was more in the agnostics, more in the Essenes, because I studied the Essenes. And when you and the History Channel has done many a program on the life and times of Jesus, and the agnostics and the 26 Gospels. And when I read the Gospel according to Joseph, which is supposed to be a much more accurate depiction of the actual teachings of Jesus, you begin to see how that is interwoven with all the other teachings on the planet, because there only is one God. So, I've been through a lot of journeys, through a lot of paths. I studied philosophy for a long time, and I studied Nietzsche. Alan Watts was a more modern-day philosopher, but I studied all the philosophers, and I got into all these different levels. But, it's just like in your life. Your journey has brought you to where you are now. I looked at the Radhaswami people. I looked at the different yogas and the Hindus. I looked at the Sufis. I love the Sufis. A lot of great Sufi masters out there, a lot of wisdom there. And we talked about Jalaladdin Rumi, and his master, Shamas Tabriz, extremely powerful master. The Ek masters. There's some paths that, and this was true back in Paul Twitchell's day, which he had studied in Kirpal Singh and the Singh group. And then there's people now that claim Kirpal Singh was a charlatan and all this. You know what? Everybody's a God person that looks to God. There's just different levels. And we in the earlier teachings on this planet, the Vaheguru or the Master was always put up as the doorway to God. And that there was always the student and the teacher, or the master and the Chela. And therefore the master taught the Chela and helped to expand the Chela. And as the student expanded, they graduated from one level to another, like in high school. And each graduation was called an initiation. There was a little 13-year-old or 14-year-old boy that could give the light to people way back in the 70s. And he came to America, and he had claimed to have the power to give the light to people. And then he got mixed up with women and Mercedes-Benz, and pretty soon I think his own group had to get rid of him. You know, it's this sort of thing, you know. I remember Ram Dass was telling a story where he was, and Ram Dass was Albert, I forget his last name, but he was a friend of Timothy Leary, and they were doing a lot of LSD at the time, and trying to learn this out-of-body consciousness, or the shifting of states of consciousness, you know, and trying to do it in all types of ways, trying to break that solidified consciousness. And so his story of going to India and meeting a master, and it was a great story. And so he's a lot of spirituality, Ram Dass does. And so he was, I think his story was he was standing in line at an X-rated movie or something one time, and some people had read his book, come up to him, and he didn't know, you know, he was standing in line at an X-rated movie, and the line was moving up, and he didn't know whether to move up or stand and talk to him like he wasn't in the line. I don't know if it was a true story or just the point he was getting across, because there is such a thing as balance. I think now, though, we've learned that the true master is unseen. A true master is not a Vaiguru where he sets himself up as the doorway, like we've set Jesus up as the doorway. Jesus definitely, if you read his teaching, said, no, not me. You will do better things than I. He was, and this is how it should be, in the sense that as souls awaken to their divinity, and you are wakening up to your divinity, you don't have an intermediary. That to me is not part of soul or Satnam consciousness, because when you become aware of yourself as soul, it isn't like there's me, there I am, or I. It just is. There's no separation. There's no points of identification to anything. There's no Master Chila. There's none of that. And yes, you learn how to continue to be more what the Sufis say, God absorbed. So it's understanding what the game is, and what the game of creation is, and who's playing the game. You're not going to know that until you learn how to go beyond your mind, your thoughts, and beyond your emotions, because these are already conditioned states. So to speak, like genetics. You know, they're conditioned, and they're already full of propaganda and half-truths. They don't house the truth in essence, because these are tools that we use to experience life in these different levels, or these different heavens, as Jesus said. There's different realms. You can call them any name you want. There's all these different realms or levels that the Supreme Being has set up in creation. And each one has a body or a sheath or a wrapping around it, so soul or you can experience that level. As soul, you took on a mind, so you could think and you could create. And then you had to take on an emotional body to kind of power up the desires and to motivate thought. And then you took a physical body on, which is the most inert part of creation, which could house all these things, but certainly is an interesting level. So there's a lot of things out there at all levels. There's a lot of planets. I remember there was some doctorate, and I can't remember if this was on Nova or what it was, but she was talking about planets, and she picked up a handful of sand. She was standing on a beach, and she let the sand pour out of her hand, and she said, how many grains of sand do you think that's on this planet? Well, if anybody's been to the beach, I mean, your mind couldn't comprehend that. She said there's billions of planets for every grain of sand on this beach. So basically she's saying that as far as we can see physically, creation goes is infinite. Some people think it's a circle.